Okay, all right. Welcome everybody to our public meeting with our draft open space parks, recreation and bicycle routes plan. Tonight we have our team here with Tavis Dockwiller and Eric Sylvester from Viridian Landscape Studio and Angie Hernandez from JMT. Tavis and Eric are landscape architects, and you'll see that their fine work in some of these slides. We hope that you'll find it inspirational and something that you'll really want to go forward with. We also have Angie Hernandez, who is a a bicycle planner. I just want to back up a second. Can everybody mute, please? Thank you. So what we're going to do is go through the plan, the highlights of the plan. Each of us will step in our different areas. So Tavis, I think you're first.
Okay. I think I'm just the rules and regulations lady right now. If you could mute and turn your camera off until the discussion portion, that just helps us with bandwidth on the Zoom. Please, everybody, listen carefully, take notes if you like. If you could just focus on the presentation. And we want you to know, after points have been made, we will take note. And we're going to have a lot of people here tonight. I think we had 54 registered. So we'll try to move on to new points if something gets repeated again and again, just to make sure everybody has a chance to have voice. If you'd like to keep your phone handy, we are going to have an interactive tool at the end. Anybody who's attended our meetings already knows what it is. When we get to the facilitated discussion, we'd like to ask that everyone limits to 2 minutes. Again, we have lots of people in the room. We want to make sure we hear all the voices. And Anne already said the meeting is going to be recorded and it will be posted on the borough's website. So if you have friends who miss it, you can direct them there.
I'd really like to thank our study committee. You can see we have a really extensive study committee on this list. We're extremely grateful because they have been our eyes and ears on this project. And I dare to say the heart and soul as well. Without them, the plan wouldn't be anywhere what you're going to see this evening. This group of passionate, committed citizens engaged in some really tough discussions. This was not a group think by any means. There were many diverse viewpoints, and because of those viewpoints, we had very engaged and rich, productive discussions. While not everybody gets everything they want in this plan, I think what they will have is something that they will live with and be proud of. The plan offers probably more than some would like and less than others would like, but it was a consensus process built upon community engagement. And we very much appreciate all the hours that people contributed, along with the expertise, their knowledge, their insights, their viewpoints. We're extremely grateful. Thank you. Okay.
I just think we have a little lag in the.
So that we love the theme of everybody's hometown. And that was even a point of discussion with the changing in the demographics in the community. It is actually becoming a less diverse community than it was, with higher property values. And that's of concern to people, especially those who would love for their children to buy a home in Media. So we think that everybody's hometown should continue to be a driving theme. We would like to thank Stephanie from the Friends of Glen Providence for some of the photography in here, as well as the Media Business Authority. You will see they have contributed some photographs in this. So we got lots of good photos from lots of places, including Veridian and Angie from JMT and my firm. So, okay, next one. Okay, we're going to go through how we got here, what the draft recommendations are, and then discussion. We'd like to hear your comments and questions. After you would please give us the opportunity of showing you our stuff. Okay. So the process, we had the Plan Advisory Committee, which we just described. We started, interestingly enough, right before we got shut down for COVID, we had a community tour. We looked at the whole community. Peter took us on some hikes. We saw all the open spaces, the parks, recreation facilities, school grounds, the town center. We got to, over the course of about 5 hours, bond together on seeing this through the same set of eyes. We did a public opinion survey. We hope that many of you participated in that survey. It was a fun, very interactive survey. We got about 756 survey responses, almost 800, which is a really, really good response from a small borough. We conducted interviews. One weekend, we actually talked with 186 people that were around and about in parks and in the town center, people of all ages, right where they were, so that we got real feelings about how they were experiencing the space they were in. We did a number of focus groups that ranged from park maintenance to financing to the fair group and the Black Parents group that were both from the school district. We did lots of on-site field work and observation. It was the best way to experience media, to see firsthand how people were using the borough. Lots of research. You'll see Angie and what Angie and Tavis will present. It's really state-of-the-art information about parks and about bicycle routes. And we think that media is just poised to do things that are state-of-the-art. We reviewed lots of materials, plans, and reports that the borough produced. This borough is very rich in plans. One of the things that we worked hard at was gathering those plans so that ours recommendations would build upon the recommendations of the other plans. So we kind of gathered them all together and took the best they had to offer and reflect them in our plan. Our wish is for implementation. And you'll see those recommendations that we hope the momentum from this whole planning process and all those involved, that the momentum's there. And as we saw recently in some things going on, that there's a lot to do to move forward. It's all positive. Okay. The public opinion, it was 796. We did get almost 800. 72% of the responses were from residents. The majority used the parks. And we found through COVID, as you all probably know, way more than before. And all of our interviews found that because people experience them, there's intent to use them more, even more than they did before COVID. That why they like to use the parks mostly is to experience nature close to home, walk and run and relax. And that in our public opinion survey we asked the community, how important are parks to you? And the response overwhelmingly was they're very important critically important to the quality of life in media. They rate the parks as average to good. which is nice, but we hope that when you do another survey in maybe 4 years, that the ratings will be good to great. That media is not an average community by any means. And we believe that your open spaces, your parks, recreation facilities, and bicycle routes should be good to great, not average. Okay. The priorities from the public opinion survey: open space conservation was most important. And as we saw this week, last week, the county stepped forward with protecting 4.7 acres of Broomall Lake, the conservation areas, which Tavis is going to explain in her open space presentation. So you have a lot of support. That's really an incredible investment in Delaware County and Media Borough. That the second and third priorities are safe places to bicycle. People want, the respondents are particularly interested in safe places to bicycle for residents. We also would like you to consider that tourism is a major economic engine for many places, and we would like that to be so in Media Borough through bicyclists, that when bicyclists come to Media as a trail town, they will spend money and support your local businesses. So it has a benefit of two ways: helping the residents and helping those who visit spur your local economy. The youth center improvements are really important. That's a fantastic facility. We found that the age group of 7 to about 16 really needs more opportunities, more engagement, more support, more involvement in planning for that age group. The other aspect of the youth center is that we believe that it should be an intergenerational facility, not just for youth, but a facility that people in your community would use throughout their lifetime and maybe on an expanded basis once they retire. Okay. The improvements that people want the most are to restore and protect the environmental quality of our parks. As you could see, this photo is just beautiful. And that's what people treasure the most, are the natural and environmental quality. More safe places to walk and bicycle, and more art in the parks, which we had talked about with Stephanie, sure, as we were kind of just chatting before we began tonight. Art in the parks is really important. Stephanie Gaborio, as the president of the Friends of Glen Providence, does a lot for in terms of cultural and performing arts in the park, in Glen Providence Park. That can be expanded to all of your other parks as well. Okay, so what we heard, the message from the community was to conserve the green space, provide safe bicycle connections, make our parks even better, add facilities we don't have. This would be things like pickleball, which we heard during COVID. Your residents were going out buying their own nets and equipment and setting up in parking lots or wherever they could to play pickleball. Recognize our heritage. The cultural heritage is really important to the community, especially the Black heritage. We have an historically Black neighborhood nearby, and that's critically important to the community. And to add more programs. People want to have more activities to engage in. Okay. So
what do you have? As you know, you're about 3/4 of a square mile. So that's the size of your borough. You have 12 parks in Media with 55 total acres, with the largest being Glen Providence. As we noted, it's a county park, but it's very much considered a media park, and the smallest at the Sandy Bank Burial Ground. You really hit the mark on people being able to walk to parks. you have a walk, a park within a 10-minute walk of almost everybody in the borough. And this is a measure that's used in all the cities across the United States. And this is a goal of cities across the United States to make sure that everyone has a park within a 10-minute walk. We actually think there are some opportunities for you to have maybe a park within a 5-minute walk of you. And you'll see how that plays out. You have lots of parks like Fifth and Broomall Park that are in the works. And you also have what we call unprotected open space. So this is open space in the borough that has no sort of overlays or protection on it. You have 22.42 acres of unprotected open space, with the largest was the Broomall Lake Country Club. And as Anne said, the county really stepped in last week to help preserve that. But you have little tiny parcels like the Lemon Street lot at 0.1 acres. And you also have some land lease. This is a piece of land over near Tag Lumber that's under a 99-year lease. It's 14 acres. And we talked about making sure that that gets some sort of a conservation overlay on it. No one's doing anything with it right now, but it became important to say that that gets protected. Here you can see the open spaces in and around. There in orange are what we call the unprotected. The purple is the land owned by the county, and the green are all of the parks that are owned by media now. We backed up to look at the total ecosystem. You know, the ecosystem doesn't care about political boundaries and where roads were put, right? The ecosystem functions as a whole. So it was really important to back up during the planning process and look at this from, this is the one time you can really say from 10,000 feet. So we looked at parks outside media, which is the dark green, parks inside media, which is that light green, the county parks and property, again in the purple, and unprotected open space in the orange. And when you back up and you look at something like this, you start to see interesting patterns that are important. For instance, the two streams that run through media or start in media, those are what we call first order streams, and they're really important to the health of the rivers. And of course, the rivers ultimately support our drinking water and our aquifers. So the idea that we start to look at open space and parks that are strung along these first order streams and talk about how to conserve them and how to make wildlife connections through them is critically important. The other thing that this starts to show us, and we'll talk a little bit later about tree canopy, that things like tree canopy really affect the interconnectedness of ecosystems. And of course, that interconnectedness supports the birds and the bees that we all depend on.
All right, so the other piece of this project was to really look at the bicycle connectivity through media. And what we did is we examined some previous planning documents where there had been routes identified as priority routes for bicycles. So we overlaid from all the previous studies and work that had been done and kind of came up with the lines that you're seeing here. You can look at the legend to the right of the map. It shows you where the different Sharrows are, whether they're one-way or two-way Sharrows. And Sharrows are the symbols you see on the roadway. That's a bike symbol, and there's kind of two chevron arrows in front of them. And what they are is intending to designate the roadway as a shared roadway with bikes and cars. So that's what a Sharrow is. There's also some lines on here of trails that are proposed within media and kind of adjacent to media going outside of the borough. And then what we did is we overlaid all of these bike routes with the parks and then some other community destinations that people might want to reach walking around the borough. So once we did that, we started seeing some patterns and routes that might be more of a priority for improved facilities along the roadways and more of a focus of where the bike routes could be. So that was the purpose of this map here and our analysis that will lead to some of the bike recommendations that I'll get into later.
On the programs, what we found through all our community engagement is that any emphasis on programming would be for physical fitness and mental health improvements, for special events and family programs, and environmental education. We also on these, excuse me, so we're going to go to the plan recommendations now. So open space, go ahead, Davis. Okay.
Okay. So the top priority was the fact that there's remaining open space under the threat of development. There are 10 unprotected open spaces totaling 20.72 acres. And again, they range in size from the 0.1 acre up to the country club. Of course, we know the county has stepped in on the country club, but open space was a priority, the unprotected, to get it protected. We also talked and found that increasing urban tree canopy, I made reference to this a minute ago. You have some great urban tree canopy within the borough, but there are also areas of canopy that's suffering. And of course, trees get old, sadly, just like we do. So we're really recommending that you take a careful look at the urban tree canopy to care for what you have and make sure that you're planting for the future. Anne, would you like to talk about the official map?
We're also recommending that this comes from your comprehensive plan. And along the borough has tools that the borough can use in addition to outright acquisition, conservation easements, the use of an official map. As we saw, an official map enables the borough to designate parcels that they're particularly interested in preserving. That's a legal tool that the borough can use, along with some other tools that include zoning, as we saw this week, eminent domain, the use of conservation easements. So these recommendations as tools to use in open space conservation, in addition to funding and outright acquisition, are included in the plan.
Optimizing our parks. The first big move, or the big move, these are the big moves that we're suggesting. The first is transform the Media Municipal Center grounds into a media ground green, really a multi-generational park. We think that that municipal center has lots of opportunity to become even more beloved and better used. And not everything that you do there has to be a multi-year project. We talked about something as simple as movable furniture to activate the spaces now. We also talked, and Anne alluded to it, about the youth center and the grounds, and we're recommending a feasibility study. Everybody loves the youth center, but it could be so much more, from the building through the property. Lots of things you can do. Manchester Park, and we do go through these in a little bit more detail, activating the park. We're also talking about creating a community school park by relating the elementary school and Barrel Field. I'll talk a little more about that. And of course, additions like signage that really help to tie the system together, and some facilities. Anne, did you want to add anything on facilities?
That what we're looking at, as I mentioned before, facilities that we don't have now, like things like pickleball. The signage is really important. In fact, Karen Tussaglux has written a grant application to develop a signage system, because we found in our outreach that providing really nice signage, and we're not talking about gunking up the community with lots of signage. We're talking about a very strategic signage system that reflects the quality of the borough, provides welcome signs for parks, directional signs, regulatory signs so the police can enforce your regulations, interpretive signage. And where Karen and Stephanie Scher have been coordinating to make these signs rooted in the arts so that it reflects our culture and heritage. So we have our fingers crossed that Karen, our master grant writer, hits it again in and expected announcements of what got funded by DCNR this round.
So I'll start by talking about the Media Municipal Center. That's right at the center of the borough. That's 3.2 acres. It's lovely already with trees and shrubs. You have a great tot lot out there. People drive there, of course, for official business, but people also walk and bike there. You could do very simple things like enriching the landscape underneath the wonderful grove of flowering trees adjacent to the building. And that's a place where you could experiment with some simple furniture and see how it activates the space. Also, the green on the right side of the photo can be enriched. And the house at the back of the property is not in use now. So we suggest rethinking that and finding a use for it. And maybe in doing that, you could rethink the parking and the entrances a little bit. That might even get you a little bit more space and better use space. These are all just reference images. These are in the report to better help you understand what we mean when we say enriching the landscape. This is a great shot of something as simple as a flowering spring ephemeral ground plane. These things can be done. They take a little bit of effort to get them established, but once they are, then they can become low maintenance landscapes, but they can really provide you with a 3-season or 4-season look and feel that's very wonderful. There's an idea of movable seating. And the other thing that you could do at the municipal center is simple: picnic tables, giant games. This is really successful for multi-generational use. And that's what we're recommending, that you really think along the lines of getting everybody to come out. It can be a great day for the older ladies and their friends, but it's also a great day if they get to go out with the grandkids. And we're suggesting looking at things like non-traditional play. This is a photo of actually a rain garden that fills up, and those little girls are standing in it. They can play in it. So you could really link things like green infrastructure and ecosystem with play in some very creative ways. The next project, and by the way, in the plan, you'll see that each park has recommendations like this. These are the tops. At the Boys and Girls Club, this is your 1.4 acre site, very open and sunny. And again, people walk, drive, and bike here. There are some traffic concerns that need to be studied. You could do things like art in unusual ways. Those wonderful water towers could become something even more for the community. It would be another way to introduce art into your park system. This is an example up in Princeton of a pop-up park. We like these because you can try things. These are park ideas that can pop up and you can see how they're used before you spend the big bucks. So you could certainly do that at the Boys and Girls Club. Try a few things, see how they work. Maybe it's events at different times of the year where you transform the property. And that'll give you a lot of great data before you make built work.
I just want to interject one thing on that slide. We put this slide in here so you could see the partnerships as we
Oh, thanks, Anne.
we'll hear later in our presentation that you have a great borough and you have great leaders with can-do attitudes in both elected and appointed officials as well as community groups that have emerged. Those partnerships are key. And we find things like this. You could look at all of the partners that supported this park that was only in existence for 2 years. So it's a good way. I mean, these partners consider it marketing, not charity. They get to promote their businesses and align with, it's kind of a halo effect of being associated with media is a really positive thing for a business.
And creative play, we're recommending that you think outside the box. It can be more than just a piece of play equipment and a bench, particularly when we're looking at our littlest learners. It's really wonderful if they have ways to interact and really move their bodies in playscapes. Sound can make a big difference. Everybody loves this. This actually also becomes very intergenerational. Everybody loves to go out and make music. And there are wonderful instruments now on the market that they really make everybody sound good. And you can be a kid banging on the drums, or you can be a professional musician. So it's this idea of creating multi-sensory spaces that engage us fully that we're recommending. And skate, everybody loves skating now. It's incredible how this sport has really become, I hesitate to say fully multi-generational, but in the last couple of years, I've met the littlest skaters and I've met people who are still skateboarding into their 50s. This is really a terrific way for people to get active. And we heard that this is desired.
I want to pipe in here for a minute on this, is that we had a very interesting presentation. Actually, they presented to Delaware County and they presented to Media Borough, a skateboard group. And I was ready, honestly, in this presentation to hear all about, blah, blah, the ramps, blah, blah, getting people in, getting kids off the street, blah, blah, all of that. The presentation wasn't that at all. It tied mental health to skate parks for this age group that, as many of you probably know, the mental health of our adolescents and young adults is tremendously challenged now, and never more so than through COVID. And the research shows how the people who use skate parks are not the people who use soccer and baseball and things like that. It's a large, unique group that needs special services, and that the camaraderie and what they experience in skate parks has been tremendously positive, has had tremendous positive results on the mental health of this age group. You might have seen it in the Olympics too. I mean, we always get this bump when they're after the Olympics, when people want facilities that they saw in the Olympics. So when you think about skate park, and our recommendation here is there is a heavy emphasis on that. We're asking you to have a broad perspective and very open mind as to why these skate parks are important. Actually, they're not a liability concern. There's a tendency to have a lot of peer pressure in using them, that the users are so grateful to have them that there really is no case law about liability and lawsuits regarding skate parks. That's kind of a red herring on this. So that's that's it in a nutshell about our pitch on why skate parks are important.
Manchester Park. Manchester Park is this sweet little park, 0.2 acres. It has a little path that connects you from the lower street up to the upper parking. It has benches out there now. You've put a lot of work into this park recently, but we really think it could be even more. And this is like the kind of a project that's sort of a springboard. You've already done something, and now let's use it to vault even a little bit higher. Teens were crying out for places to hang out, and we want to create healthy hangouts for your teens. You can hit. This park could go the next step with artful seating, sculpture, and creative play opportunities. Those are solar loungers that you see there. Those are swings. Those were actually swings that were done down at 30th Street Station in a pop-up park to reactivate that space. You could activate the space that way. Everybody would love those. The teens would love them. Adults would love them. Little kids would love them. And then art, and we're really suggesting art in the parks. And you could do something that's permanent sculpture, or that willow sculpture, that's actually a pop-up piece. So really being thoughtful and creative in all of the parks about art interventions, and starting with a few in Manchester Park. Thinking outside the box, the upper right photo, that's the little library that rolls out into a park on certain days of the week to activate it. So really tying your community resources and programming with activating places, creative things like swings. And of course, I think everybody now knows the Bull and the Girl at Wall Street. That has become the Instagram photo op for absolutely everyone. People want places for better or for worse where they can take that photo. And then the Media Elementary Playground, and I'll talk about this, partnered with Barrel Field. This is 0.7 acres. They've been doing lots of work on play equipment. There are also paved basketball courts. And again, people walk, drive, and bike to this park. And Barrel Field right across the street, 2.5 acres, open, sunny, street trees. This has the 2 baseball fields and the 2 tennis courts. And as Anne noticed, people are out there converting those tennis courts routinely into pickleball, which is a great way to get more play on courts. This is where Anne met people who were bringing their own nets and rackets out. So the idea is to take what you've been doing and really elevating everything into a master plan, a community park plan, looking at greening the schoolyard, tying it back to nature more, upgrading anything that needs upgrading. The potential, there's lots of potential for these areas: gardens, outdoor classrooms, curriculum tie-ins. How to connect the parks. This could happen in a variety of ways. You already closed that street on weekends for different events, different pop-up events. You could paint the streets. This could be a place of pop-up skateboarding, maybe eventually permanent skateboarding. And of course, ways to treat stormwater could be taken pretty seriously here, and maybe even cool places to play in the summer. That would really be wonderful to add to the media portfolio of parks. And spray parks, while they do have maintenance associated with them, they're not maintenance free. We're recommending that you look at places, and everyone always thinks they're just for our littlest kids, but they're not. Everybody loves them. I've seen parents go in fully dressed. We mentioned signage at this area would be very important, and there are lots of ways to do it. It should all work back into your overall signage system. And back to Angie.
All right. So, I think these are the right slides. If not, we might need to jump to another presentation, but, all right. So the slides here are talking about some of the bicycle recommendations that have come from the plan. So again, I want to just kind of recap what I said earlier about the on-road network. So when we got to looking at media, we found that there isn't a lot of opportunities for trails or separated bike facilities through the town. And that's what led us down the road of looking at how can we make the roads better for bikes. So one of the first recommendations is looking at those routes that we've already started identifying and thinking about a bike wayfinding package for the community. So this example here was a very specific example from another project where we actually created bike routes with the wayfinding, but in media, there could be an opportunity to mesh the bicycle wayfinding into the other community wayfindings that it would serve for both pedestrians and cyclists. A lot of the destinations that people are interested in reaching by walking are going to be similar destinations that people will be interested in reaching by bike. So we have some ideas of how to integrate that into the plan and how some destinations like bike parking might be important for bikes, but not necessarily important for pedestrians, but nonetheless could all be part of the same wayfinding, branded under the same, so to avoid additional sign clutter. Next slide. The secondary recommendation, which I think is already underway, I don't know, they might already be restriped, is to update the existing Sharrows on the streets. So the Sharrows that were on the streets when we kind of started this project, you can see there was snow on the ground whenever these photos were taken. The Sharrows were getting worn away. That's what happens. They're just paint. They go away eventually. And some of them were applied too close to parking. So you can see on the top right that the Sharrow, which is meant to convey where a person on a bike should position themselves in the roadway, is actually underneath of parking, very close to the back end of cars. So it's a dangerous place for a bike to be and impractical depending on the length of the vehicle. So we worked with the borough identifying some ways to improve the Sharrow network just by replacing them into the street to better position them. The other idea would be to actually add a green backing onto the Sharrows. So the bottom left image, there's many terms for this: green back Sharrow, super Sharrow. It is not a approved design feature, it's more experimental at this point though. But what it's meant to do is really emphasize that shared lane and make sure that people driving their cars see that symbol, understand that this road gives bikes more of a priority, and to yield the right of way to bikes whenever they are present. Next slide. Bike parking was another thing that we found that could be improved. So this image here shows what we are told is the most popular bike rack in media. It's also the most visible. So we have to believe there's correlation there between its popularity and its visibility. Media has bike parking around the city, but they're more of the standard staple racks. They're just kind of an inverted U. Most of them are black. So some recommendations we had was to relook at the existing bikeway or the bike parking, possibly repainting that parking and making it more visible and functional in the streetscape. And then also you could incorporate that branding and visual identity into the bike parking as well. Next slide. So some ideas about bike parking. There's all kinds of ways people have taken bike parking in their communities. The first image here shows some temporary bike parking that's actually used for a farmer's market. So whenever the farmer's market comes to town, they pop up the bike parking there, and it is advertising the farmer's market, obviously, with the fruits and vegetables on there. So it's bright, people see it, kind of serves as that art. It designates that the farmer's market's going on, and it's a functional place for people to park their bikes. The image to the right is meant to convey more of a message to cars and to the community about biking. And the idea is that you can fit a lot of bikes into one parking space. So in communities where on-street parking is a very high priority and really a need, but there's also a need for bike parking. It demonstrates that you can fit a lot more bikes into a parking spot than a car. So that's what that top image is conveying there. And then the bottom left It's a very fun bike parking facility. It's a lot of art, but it's just not functional. That rack design doesn't provide the proper support for a bike. Trying to lock your bike to it, you're probably gonna, just be able to lock the tire to it if you're lucky. Maybe you get the frame on if you have a really long cord with you, but it's not the most functional type of bike parking. And then the last image there, also more of a standard looking bike design there, nothing too crazy about the rack itself, but pretty cheap application of some fun paint. Again, designating a space that would traditionally be for cars to park is now bike parking. And in this instance, actually, you can see there's an intersection coming up and a a crosswalk there. So given your street design, this space would typically not be allowed for car parking because of visibility issues, but you can often squeeze in bike parking closer to the intersections because you don't have the visibility issues with bikes that you do with cars making those turns. Next slide. So the other recommendation is to really invest in neighborhood greenways. So again, these are the on-road improvements that can be made to really help make your streets better for bikes. And I think the next slide has some examples there. All right, so right here, these illustrations are coming out of the NACTO design guide. So NACTO is a National Association of City Transportation Officials. They give a lot of great design guidance. So why recreate the wheel? We thought we would just talk to some of the designs they have in their design guide. So this image here shows a bike box. And the thing I like about this image is it shows the bike box, but it's more of a pocket bike box. Typically bike boxes come with bike lanes, but you can actually use them even when you don't have a bike lane present to help to better position cyclists in the roadway. So imagine that you're riding your bike, you come up to an intersection when you're in the shared lane environment and there's the signal. You can wait behind the car if you wanted to, but putting in the bike box here at the intersection gives you a path to get around the car safely. It's all greens. The car understands that bikes could come. You can then position yourself in front of the car as long as the signal is red and it's safe to do so. And then you get that advanced movement through the intersection by bike. So it's not just to help get bikes to flow better through here and save on their exertion and kind of the movements through the corridor, but it's also safer. Having bikes up in front of cars and getting that priority to go through the intersection first increases their visibility and reduces potentials for crashes when bikes do not have that kind of priority and have to mix with the cars as they go through the intersection. Go ahead and hit the space bar. There we go. So here's a very cheap, it's my fun little cheap improvement for your roadways. So it's the bike forward stop bar. So if you've ever been riding your bike, and you come up to an intersection, you will typically do the thing that we all do usually is you kind of stop at the stop sign, but you really can't see because there's a bush, there's a parked car, there's a house, there's a retaining wall, there's always something blocking your view of that intersection. So then what you do is you kind of creep forward until you can see, and then you go. So what the bike forward stop bar does is it kind of bakes in that movement into the roadway and the expectation of a cyclist. You still have to stop at the stop sign, give the right of way to any pedestrians that might be crossing the road. But then once it's free and clear of pedestrians, you pull forward to where the bike stop is, and then you're able to better see cars coming in your direction and just navigate any kind of turns or movements you make from here. This also comes with a little bit of design tweaks to your curb lines. So you can see here, there's some curb extensions, and what those curb extensions do is they help to shorten pedestrian crossing distances, but they also provide a safe space that bikes can kind of sit there and make a determination of if they want to cross the intersection or not without having to sit in oncoming traffic. A lot of our intersections aren't designed with these curb extensions and there's visibility issues. So we get cyclists that have to kind of sit at the intersection in a not very comfortable situation, trying to determine when it's safe to cross. Next. I think this is the last one here from NACTO. This is a mini traffic circle. So this application, they've actually proposed keeping the stop signs for the intersecting streets so that cars still stop. Those are sometimes appropriate, sometimes not. It depends on the traffic volumes and the sight distance of the roadway. But what the traffic circle does is it helps bikes to be able to move more freely. So in this situation, you can see where the bikes are each going on the one roadway. That would be your bike priority street. So the bikes in this situation don't have the stop sign, so they're able to move through that intersection, whereas the other streets with the cars coming at them, you can see the one sitting at the stop sign, they need to stop because this is a priority bike route. So this kind of puts the onus on the vehicles on the side streets to pay attention for oncoming vehicles as well as bicycles. And then this one here just shows those curb extensions again that I talked about in the previous illustration. So our last recommendation within our bike component of this plan is to revisit and update the Media Bicycle Master Plan. So the plan was done in 2016, and many of the plan's actions have actually already been implemented. But as we've looked through all these recommendations, we really thought, the place for all of this to live is going to be in its own plan. It is great that it's in this plan as it's setting that foundation and really helping to guide, but this plan and the bike components within it could be a launching point for a bike plan update. And updating that bike plan really sets the stage for funding opportunities. Once you have your bike plan all pulled together, pulling all the recommendations in, it's going to make it much easier to get funding that you have gone through the planning process to document where your priorities are, the projects that are the most priority, and have the public process as well to make sure that the ultimate plans for media is what the community wants. So we think that, looking at that plan in the near future is something that would really help to bring some of these ideas closer to fruition and make some great things happen.
So thanks, Angie. Our dream is for Media Borough to be recognized as a bicycle-friendly community with a platinum status. As the county seat, it would be Media Borough can be the model for the rest of the county in establishing trail towns countywide. So these recommendations range from low-hanging fruit to some big ticket items, and all aimed at becoming bicycle friendly. On the operations and management plan, what I'd like to kind of set the stage for this by thanking Karen Tussig-Lux for working with us on operations and management. She provided great information to us about current operations and management. And Peter Williamson and A.B. Johnson really helped to formulate discussions about how organizationally the borough could advance and support these recommendations. And our community groups really stepped forward and with clarity on things that we really need in the borough to make open space work, to make the trail connections, to make the park facility improvements. So as you can see in the photography in all of our slides and also in the plan is really important. And Karen stepped up there too. We have at least 50 photographs that are high quality that Karen provided to illustrate our points. So I just want to give a tip of the hat to Karen for all the help she provided in these recommendations. So on the operations and management, our goal is to have safe, clean, functional, and beautiful places where residents want to spend time. Just think for yourself, where do you want to spend time? How do you want to spend a couple of hours or half an hour? So to do that, what we recognize is the importance of stewardship and natural resource management. Right now, the emphasis is pretty much on mowing and trash pickup, as is normal in most local parks and recreation systems. But on the path that we've laid out here with you for media, that natural resource management is key. The recent action on Broomall Lake, as Tavis described, is the perfect illustration of how actions that the borough undertakes in parks and open spaces will help with resiliency and addressing climate change. So we have cleaner air, cooler conditions. So that's really very important. We're recommending a formal maintenance management plan. Mike Green has been awesome, your public works superintendent, in working collaboratively with us in establishing a program specifically for open space and park maintenance. And with that, we're recommending an employee development program. That this plan calls upon the borough to have employees with a different set of skill set than is normal. As we mentioned, the mowing and litter pickup, trash removal. Now we're looking at things like tree care, stream bank stabilization, removal of invasive species, planting and maintaining native plants. The borough can't do it alone. Partnerships are key. We know that Keep Media Green helps with maintenance in some of the special park cleanups that Keep Media Green arranges in the community. So we would like to see those kinds of partnerships even expanded to include other groups as well. Okay. So what we're recommending is that we continue to support our partnering groups. And what we've seen is that there's so many groups here for this little borough. There's a lot of partners going on, but they're all so busy that they kind of operate independently. And when we think that if you had a partnership summit, that would launch people more interactively, to share responsibilities and benefits in supporting the borough. We're recommending phasing in the reconfiguration of the recreation board to reflect the demographics in the community, so that all races, cultures, age groups, abilities be reflected on the recreation board. We're grateful, extremely grateful to those who serve on the recreation board now. And we're recommending, this would be evolutionary over time, that board evolve as terms expire, things like that. And we love the borough council having liaisons to key groups. That keeps everybody in the loop. It's very unusual and a positive feature of borough operations. Okay, next slide. So here's the toughie, is funding. It always is. So this slide shows what we currently have and what the potential might be. We don't operate parks, recreation, and open space in a vacuum. We recognize that we're part of a whole borough operation and that it's a balancing act for elected officials, that there are so many demands on staff and budget that it really does need to be balanced. So what we're spending right now is about $163,000 if we round up on parks and recreation, which is about 1.6% of the budget. DCNR and other research shows that optimally, it's 5% of the operating budget for parks and recreation, and that what we're spending is $28.59 per capita versus the statewide average of $38 and an average of $82 for parks and recreation nationwide. The survey found support for additional funding. Now, full disclosure, the survey was not statistically valid and reliable, but it is a good indicator. It's almost 800 responses from the community. We think that's about 800 households, close to it. It would be under, but that their support. And when we ask the respondents what they're supporting, usually we find, a little bit of more support. But what we found here was the response was a lot more support. There's favorable public opinion about open space, parks, and recreation, which goes to show that you do have a good system. Otherwise, people wouldn't be willing to spend more on it. So what is the potential? What could the borough tap? In addition to partnerships, sponsorships, fees and charges, things that can be generated, there are two sources of funding within the borough's capacity. Again, the borough needs will continue to be plentiful. If we added a whole mill, which in our municipal taxation codes is unlimited for recreation, the millage is unlimited, that it would raise $993,000. If we added 1/4% of the EIT, that would generate $975,000. Now, that doesn't mean the borough needs to go a whole mill or a whole 1/4%. The borough could enact anything under a mill, 1/10 of a mill, 1/4 of a mill, half a mill. So you would ratchet back what we just used the mill as an example to round it off. Now, the EIT requires a voter referendum. The 1/4% of the EIT can go to open space, and 1/4 of that can actually go to maintenance, which is huge. Getting maintenance funding is really tough. It's a lot easier to get a grant to build or develop or renovate a park than it is to maintain it. Yet long-term, it costs 4 times as much to maintain a park as it does to acquire and develop it. So we're presenting those options. Other ways of generating income aren't readily available except through the youth center. Programming is a revenue generator, but you don't really have the staff to generate the volume of programs. Normally, the national average is about 35% of a parks and recreation budget is generated through non-tax sources. And your borough does well through its partnerships in generating non-tax support, but more can be done. So that's the dollars and cents. Now you again, back to Karen. Karen Tussig Lux is your grant writer, and she gets a lot of hits on grants. She's very talented at seeing where the money is. The county has also stepped up to help on that, with Broomall Lake, and then the county is also applying to develop a section of trail around near the courthouse that is a recommendation from your recently undertaken Medias Medley connector trail. So you are getting a lot of really good support from Delaware County. Okay. So this is the slide that shows the willingness to pay more. This to me is a very remarkable finding that 92% are willing to pay more. Again, not statistically valid and reliable, but a very good, strong indicator of support for open space parks, recreation, and bicycle routes. Okay. So that's the 10-year recommended plan. And we would like to open this up for discussion. So comments and questions that you might have, we'd like to open it up. We're not using the chat, but what we would like, as Tavis said originally, that we really would like to keep the points fresh, and so that we get all the points introduced. So Eric might want to stop sharing now. And thank you. We see Joy up there raising her hand. Go for it, Joy. Unmute.
Hi, thank you so much for having this. This was super duper informative and a great program to watch. Yes, I would like to, well, I guess comment on, I guess, switch out. I know that a lot of people would like to pay more to, I guess, pay more in taxes to protect open space, which is great. My concern is how many of those people are able to pay more. So I want to make sure that we think about people in the borough who might not have the funds or the ability to pay more to protect open space through raising taxes or, through a referendum.
Okay, thank you. Good
Thank
point.
you.
Joe Leach.
Hi there. I wanted to, I apologize for my camera, but I've had some experience with the Navy Yard with an outfit called Group X, and they've had some art projects that are just amazing. And I wanted to tie that together with the idea that was floated earlier about making and improve, or shall we say, enhancing Media Borough's visibility as a tourist attraction. Because of the fact that that supports a lot of things. It supports the businesses directly. So the Media Business Association is a direct beneficiary of the additional traffic that's generated. And I'm hoping that a lot of it could be via public transportation or bicycles. But for those of you who are interested, you might want to look up an outfit in Philadelphia called Group X, and look at the kinds of attractions that they have come up with.
Thanks, Joe. You
Sure.
gave me a thought. I just wanted to mention this. We're managing the Delaware County Open Space and Trail Program, and we have a commission to do some writing on return on environment, which shows to demonstrate that parks and recreation and open space are an investment, not a cost. And to that end, we conducted a survey at the Rose Tree Concert Series, asking 5 simple questions of the participants. Did they go out to eat or spend money on food before or after locally, before or after those concerts? And we're doing a case study on that to demonstrate that those concerts are really important in supporting local businesses in the media area. So look forward to reading about this in December when our results are in. But so far we got about 175 survey responses from 8 concerts, in which people documented that they were spending well over $20 a person before and after those concerts at local restaurants. So it just goes to show the importance of recreational programming in the community.
Or what they're gonna do with it.
Okay. Other questions and comments? Joe, your hand's still up. Are you asking more?
I'm okay. I've just figured out to lower the hand.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Joe, by the way, I've seen some of those art installations. They're awesome down at the Navy Yard.
Other comment? Oh, here we go. Robin, I think Robin, go for it.
Thanks, Anne. Robin Lasserson, co-chair of Keep Media Green. I just want to thank you and your team for the development of the plan. I attended as a member of the public all of the advisory committee meetings, so I've seen the evolution of the plan and your responsiveness to the community, and I really appreciate that you captured the top #1 urgent priority of the community, which is to acquire and protect the last remaining acres of open space in the borough. And I'm particularly gratified at tonight's presentation that the plan is going to mention the full range of tools that municipalities have at their disposal to do that. I'd like to focus my comments on the question of green space funding, which is incorporated into your presentation. And I'd like to suggest that While you laid out sort of the options for how to fund the expenses associated with acquiring, protecting, and maintaining green open space, I think it would be helpful if in the final draft of the plan, there were some more specific and maybe forcefully worded recommendations around the funding focused on two action items. And the first would be to establish a dedicated line item or a separate green space fund in the 2022 budget specifically. And two, I'd love for the plan to explicitly endorse the idea of the voter referendum so that, we can put the stamp of approval, hopefully, through majority vote on a funding mechanism, whether that's the earned income tax or, maybe authorizing borrowing, which wasn't mentioned tonight. And I just think that that would be in alignment with the mentioning that the number one priority is urgent. I think the recommendation around the funding mechanism should be equally urgent. And particularly because our organization began discussion around this funding mechanism back in January. The finance committee of the borough had its first conversation about it in September, but it was not even mentioned at the borough workshop meeting in the finance committee report in October, meaning that the November workshop meeting will be the first opportunity for the borough council as a whole to discuss this whole question of green space funding, and the budget needs to be passed in December, and wording for a referendum would need to be submitted to the county Bureau of Elections by February. So I just would love to see the final version emphasize the urgency of deciding around the funding mechanism in alignment with saving the remaining now 22 some vulnerable acres. But again, thank you for the work. It was a great presentation, lots of creative ideas around a whole range, and that's it.
Hey, Robin, thanks. Thanks. You were always there. Thank you. Thank you for being steadily engaged in the whole process. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Dennis.
I think he's still muted.
Yeah, Dennis, could you unmute, please?
Oh, sure. It works better when I do that.
There you go.
Thank you. You saw my mouth moving. Yeah, no, thank you for a great presentation. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. One, when talking about the open space, now when you're referring to open space, that you're not just talking about parks, but like leaving open open space that's undisturbed, like with trees, woods, etc. Is that my understanding? What you're talking about is open space as well?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, and then it was also great to see that also hearing that it is the number one priority of the citizens of media, but also showing the numbers of how severely as a borough we're underspending in this area, either relative to the state or when looking at the country as a whole. We are severely underspending. So with any of those numbers, did you also look at, like, are there other areas where the borough is spending, which is above maybe where other areas are? So is that another area of which some funds could be available for updating open space?
We did not look at other areas. We had a tough time meeting the identified scope of work obligations here. But in terms of the overall budget spending, is that what our message is, that Parks and Recreation is part open space, and bicycle routes are part of the overall borough obligations. So we always recommend that Parks and Recreation be mainstreamed into overall borough operations and borough planning, borough funding, so that the budget it's balanced. It meets all community needs. That said, we'd love nothing more than to have a budget totally dedicated to parks and recreation, but that wouldn't serve anybody well. So it really does need to be balanced. And that's why community engagement is important. Officials need to hear your feelings on that. We don't have an unending supply of money available. That's why we're recommending different options. And the borough has been doing a great job in identifying and securing creative sources of funding by doing the art programs that you've heard about tonight, the youth center, how the youth center gets memberships and offsets costs. So the borough is doing a really good job, but we didn't look at, the price of police and fire and all of those things. No.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, and is also is for yeah, I agree with Robin, is about the urgency to create a line item of open space, because as you said, I mean, the survey shows that this is top priority, and we are underspending, but the citizens are willing to pay more.
Thank you, Dennis. More hands? Okay, well then we have a question for you. You ready, Eric and Tavis?
Eric will be ready. He's got it.
We're going to ask you a question then.
Yes. 1 second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. On the following slide, there'll be a question that you'll all be able to access via a QR code that'll pop up. So for those of you who don't know how to do QR codes, you'll go to your camera app on your phone, hold your camera over the QR code, and then a pop-up will happen, and you'll click the pop-up and it'll take you directly to the link for the question.
We're kind of joking around about this since if we did this a year ago or longer ago, maybe people wouldn't get it. But now we've all been to restaurants where we have to tap a QR code to find out what's on the menu. So we think it's probably a lot easier for us than it was 18 months ago.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
If you're watching this on your phone, is there another option?
Yes, if you go to slido.com, that's SLIDO.com, and then you'll be able to type in this number right here.
All right, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
While people are typing in of what you heard tonight, what do you like the best? Julie has her hand up. So Julie, we will ask you what you would like to say.
I'll be brief, but thank you for everything, and thank you for emphasizing that preserving open space is the priority for many, many residents in this borough. But my question is, you said that partnerships are key. And I was wondering if you had any suggestions that you can present to our council and to the groups all trying to work together to preserve our open space and green space and make things better. Is there a way that it can be facilitated so that everybody can be a partnership rather than working as separate entities, sometimes almost fighting against each other?
Yes, we recommended a summit, a partnership summit, where all the partnering groups can come together. And there's actually some grant money that could support this. There's a grant called a RecTap grant. It's a $2,500 no match grant that's provided by the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society to address an issue or an opportunity. We used it in another project that Tavis, Eric, and I worked on, in which we used it as a fundraising initiative. But you could hire a facilitator to help orchestrate partners working together. So that's a no match, easy solution. We would recommend an outside facilitator for that, so that you have an outside objective view on managing the conversation and the discussion to ensure that it's productive and that it has actual outcomes. As you move forward, that would be a jumpstart action. And as you move forward, we would recommend that the Recreation Board in its reconfiguration have partnerships as a mission. That could be the Recreation Board, the mission and purpose. Maybe that would become a Park Recreation and Open Space Board instead of just a Recreation Board. And that we would recommend annually that there be themes in those meetings, so that every year, like budget would be a theme in August to get ready for the fall budget season. Programming would be a theme in January to get ready for the summer season. Open space could be a theme in the spring. You could do tours like we did on the bus, so that it would be a way to institutionalize and direct action on a regular basis, that people know what to expect and have ways to come together. We think it's really important for your partnering groups to come together, and it needs to be facilitated. So that would be the direction we would take. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, that's great. A facilitator would be awesome, something to actually make progress. So
Mhm.
yes, I like that. Thank you.
Mhm. Well, that's what we found, is that there are diverse points of view, but we all want the same thing. Everybody wants the same thing in this community. They want everybody to be everybody's hometown, to celebrate the culture and heritage and preserve the open space. We'd be hard pressed to find anybody that would disagree with that. So you have a lot of commonality to build upon.
And I think we have one more raised hand.
Ira,
Hello, how you doing?
good, good.
Thanks for your work. And I wanted to say I also think that acquiring and preserving open space is the most important thing for media. And yeah, we need to fund it. I'm willing to pay more, and it should be in the budget. But also, with respect to what you're talking about with Rose Tree Park concerts, those people spending at media businesses, I think it would be awesome if there was a really, really good way for people to walk from media to Rose Tree Park. And I've also been thinking this for a while, but I don't know if I said it yet in any of your previous meetings, but we have a new hotel in media, which is pretty decent, and it's filled up a lot. And those people, we have a parking problem in media, and it'd be great if instead of driving that, half a mile or whatever into the center of town, if those people could walk. And I thought, that part of that's not, I don't think that's all Media Borough. It's Wallingford, or I'm not sure. I think it's Wallingford. But the county would probably be behind this. It'd be it's like just across the street, Providence Road. I mean, you got to have a decent crossing for people to get across, and then like not only wayfinding signs, but like a big archway saying this way to media, or media town center or something like that, that made it really obvious, and good wayfinding, maybe even on the paintings on the sidewalk or whatever, for people to get there. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ira. Okay, Joy, we're back to you. Is this a new hand raised?
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to quickly point out how, or ask if accessibility for wheelchair users were considered in the ideas that were presented tonight.
Well, I'll just start, but I would like my whole team to jump in here. ADA is a foundation of all our work, as is diversity, equity, and inclusion. That any designs that we do, in order to get grant money, everything has to be accessible. But I mean, that's kind of the rule and the law. but we believe that deep in our DNA, that accessibility just makes things work better for everybody. I know I've had my own personal experiences where ADA regulations really helped me improve my family activity as my mother aged. So we believe that in our core. We also believe, it doesn't have to, through good design, it's going to be accessible and beautiful. But Angie and Tavis, you might want to pop in on this answer.
I'd like to speak to it. It's really important that when you look at parks and open space, it's not just wheelchair accessible, but it's accessible for everyone who's differently abled. Some of the precedent images that we shared for you are not only multi-generational, but they also really put an emphasis on everybody being able to play together, no matter how their body works. And I really think that that is very important. It isn't that every person has to get to every space. It's that people, particularly when we talk about play, need to have common experience. That's absolutely paramount. So I hope, if you can take a dive, if you haven't yet, into all the recommendations, you'll start to see that come through. And I think we even talk about this differently than we did 15 years ago.
Yeah,
Thank you.
To echo what's already been said, ADA is vitally important, especially if you're talking about any kind of trails or pathways where pedestrians are going to use them. They have to be ADA compliant. There's not an option to say that they're not. And then as far as all of the bike work and the design that we've suggested here and proposed in our recommendations, we believe in really creating facilities for people of all ages and abilities. We do not typically recommend facilities that are only going to suit, the most advanced and able-bodied cyclists. We look for ways to design that everyone can use these bike facilities, especially in a place like media. That's the expectation. We design so that everyone is able to use the facilities, not just a one more advanced or expert group.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks, Tavis. Any more hands? I'm looking through. Okay. Tavis, you want to?
I'm loving how our slides populating.
Yeah. You want to go over it, Tavis?
We have a raised hand from Jane.
Okay.
Hi. I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand.
I
I haven't done it for a while and I couldn't remember how to do it. Yes, I just wanted to echo the same sentiments that were expressed by others about the urgent need to prioritize figuring out how we're going to budget the money to acquire and preserve open space. It was definitely clear in the presentation tonight that the community values open space and places a high priority on it. So now it seems critical that we figure out how we're going to fund that. So, and thank you so much for all your work and for the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Jane. We're honored to be able to work with you.
Thank you.
Well, we're seeing out on our slide, we've got the big acquiring and preserving open space. This does start to make text bigger. This is a live word cloud. So now no cheating out there, but the more you say things, the larger they will get on the screen. People were appreciating the bike pics and information. Lots of comments on prioritizing open space. They came up in all different ways. The skate park was favorable for you all. What else do we have out there? Bike safety features, new media park at the courthouse, evidence for the efficacy of return on the environment, bike signage ideas. So everybody was paying good attention. And as I said, if you haven't looked at the whole report, go out, because it's we hit all the high points, but it's chock full of a lot of detail that will really help you to realize a park system even better than you have.
Thank you, Tavis. Does anybody else have a hand up? I'm not seeing anybody else. So we'll go to the next steps. So what happens next is that we have the draft on what we had been to council for a work session. So we're adding the comments that we got from the work session, the comments that you provided tonight, and the draft is being edited. So our goal is to have the draft ready for a council meeting on October 21st. So we're busy getting that all edited and everything included to finalize the draft. That's our goal. But then the hard work begins, the implementation. We're done, but you're just beginning. But there's a lot going on. I mean, you have the Greenways grant program that the county has underway, and the whole Greenways program that will be getting ready for grant round 3 in 2022. And all the efforts aside from the funding just the grant program, what that's doing. So carrying out what the county, how supportive the county is of Media Borough right now is really important. So we have the recommendations here in the plan. So we have a jump start in here as well. So we're hoping that you will continue to move forward, and this advisory committee can, with Borough Council, decide how it wants to be reconfigured to monitor implementation of the plan and to keep it going. There has to be a group in place to make sure that the plan is implemented. We have other projects where one of my favorites is seeing a plan all rolled up and in one of the council's back pockets. He referred to it as the Bible, and it was all earmarked and torn up, but I mean, that's the way we like to see them. So we would recommend that reconfiguration of council to move into of this advisory board to move into implementation, and that every year before budget season, you review what are the needs in the borough, what are the opportunities in the borough, and how do they fit with the recommendations of this plan. So the plan is meant to be a living document, and we would fully expect it to change as you begin to implement things and as needs evolve and opportunities emerge. So every year we would recommend August, September that you take a look at this plan and see where you want to go next, and to actually set up a work plan for the next fiscal year and address your budget based upon that work plan. That will make things happen. Okay. Any other final comments? Okay. Well, there will be a council meeting on October 21st if you would like to participate in that as well. I'm sure council would welcome you. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Stephanie.
Thank you so much.
And I'm just going to run and let my dog in. I'll be right back.
Okay.
My meeting. Yeah, my meeting ended. Oh, and we could probably stop recording now.
Oh, yes, good idea. Thank you.
Hmm.